Hey cake lovers, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about controversial cakes that I've made. Now before I start, I'm going to put a warning here because they may cause offense. I don't think they're particularly controversial, but everybody's level of controversy is different. So you might be offended, you might not, but people can't say that I haven't warned you. Here's the warning. I'm going to start from the least controversial cake to the most controversial cake based on people's reactions to them. In third place is a BOOB cake. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say, well, BOOB cake is not really that controversial. There's been loads of BOOB cakes around. It may also depend on whether the BOOB is covered or not. My one wasn't fully covered. The story behind it was one of my colleagues in my previous role in my day job, he was thinking about leaving his job and going abroad and starting a new life with his family. And he knew I made cakes and he said, would you make me a BOOB cake when I leave? And I said, yeah. He probably thought I was joking, I wasn't serious. So what happened was he decided he was going to leave his job and go abroad, start a new life with his family. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make you the BOOB cake. So I made it. Here it is here. Remember, this is the time when I still did fondant covered cakes, which I don't do anymore. I remember bringing it into the office and there was a lot of, the women were okay, but the guys were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made that, blah, blah, blah. Because as we know, boobs have been sexualized for thousands of years, even though it's a natural part of a woman's body, and the fact that they're sexualized is an issue because people still get offended by public breastfeeding, but that's for another day, that topic. I brought it in, most people liked it, and I remember one person said, does it squirt milk? I said, no, it doesn't. That wasn't part of the brief. It was my brief. I don't know, can you make BOOB cakes squirt milk? Maybe you probably can actually. There's probably quite an easy way to do. I'm thinking about it now. But yeah, so that's that cake. Probably not too controversial though. Like I say, boobs are highly sexualized and yeah. So that's in third place, the BOOB cake. In second place is a weed cake. I made this cake in 2013. What's quite funny now is the whole thing with weed, cannabis, THC, CBD, the whole kind of environment has really changed now. I'll give you an example. I went to lunch last week with a couple of my friends in Southgate, and on the main high street where all the shops are, they've got a CBD like dispensary, and I was looking at it thinking, you would never have seen that, 10 years ago, probably. It just goes to show how much it's changed. So the story behind this cake kit was for an 18th birthday. Maybe a bit controversial there because it's like 18 and you're doing a weed cake. 18 is an adult. There were some people who thought I shouldn't make it because it was kind of promoting drugs, and I understand that, but it's my business and it's my decision. I went ahead and did it. So here's the cake here. So it was more like, obviously the cake itself did not contain weed. It was a representation of it. You can see the cannabis leaf on there. And actually the weed that what looks like weed is actually peppermint tea. So I got a peppermint tea bag and I cut it and I poured little bits of it over it, and it does actually look like weed. So if you're ever going to do like a weed representation cake, peppermint tea is a really good, it looks just like it. So yeah, I mean, like I said with the weed cake, things have changed so much. Obviously it's still illegal. I mean, if you get caught with it, it depends how much you have. So I suppose if it's like for personal use, you get a fine or something. But if you've got like loads, and it looks like you're a distributor, that's when, you know, you start getting things like, I don't know, community service or prison sentences. The only reason I know this is because I watch too much of them traffic cops and this and that. That's how I know I don't do weed myself. So that's my second cake, the weed cake, in second position. And in first place are my red blood cell cupcakes. I'll put the picture here. I'm not going to go too much into this one, only to say it wasn't a natural order, it was for a project that I was involved in the time. The reason I'm not going to go too much into it is because I'm actually going to do a separate video on this cake. But it was a very kind of, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And the other side was, why would you make something like that? And I'm like, it's blood. Blood is what keeps us alive. Obviously the cells on top, the red blood cells, are magnified by however many millions, but that's what keeps us together. But I think, you know, blood for a lot of people is quite squeamish, and the thought of making a red blood cell cake, and it's like, oh, you're eating blood, and it's obviously it's not real blood, it's sugar paste, fondant, whatever. But I'm going to go into that more because there's I want to go into the story about it, and that cake, it went really mad. That's all I'm going to say when I made it at the time. So that is it. Before I finish, just a quick cake business tip. What I would say is, when it comes to making controversial cakes, it's completely up to you whether you want to do it or not. Don't let other people sway you. Decide within yourself whether you're going to make a controversial cake or not. If it's something that you don't want to do, don't do it. If it's something that you want to do, do it. Just be mindful that there's going to be people who are going to be like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't do that cake. It's really offensive. I mean, it depends how offensive it is. But something like, obviously, like the weed cake, there were people who said I shouldn't do it. And I decided I'm going to do it. So it does depend on how controversial it is. But just be mindful, it's your business and you decide whether you're going to make it or not. So that's it for today. Which of these cakes offended you? Did any of them offend you? To be honest, like I said at the beginning, I feel they're quite tame. I don't feel that they're offensive, but you might not think so. So let me know in the comments which cakes offended you and why. Until next time, cake lovers.